They dragged her through the palace gates, barefoot, bruised, her face streaked with tears and dust. Yet the crowd didn't laugh. They stared, silent, stunned, because in her arms she held the golden flute of the prince. "I didn't steal it," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I only played it, because he told me to." The king stood, his face unreadable, while the queen clutched her robe in disbelief. Then, from the shadows, a woman in a white veil stepped forward. "She didn't steal it," the woman said calmly. "I gave it to her. I am her real mother." Gasps swept across the court. The prince's eyes widened. "What?" The woman nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I have returned from the world of spirits. Not even death could stop me from helping my daughter." Now the story begins. From the beginning. In the village of Umuzala, where the trees whispered secrets and the moon was a storyteller, a girl named Enma lived in the back hut of her father's compound. She was the daughter of the first wife, now long gone, buried quietly with no songs, no farewells. Enma was barely 12 when her mother passed, her last words clinging to her heart like morning dew on leaves. "The world may forget you, my child, but never forget who you are." From that day, Enma became invisible. Her father, a proud hunter named Ekwemi, took a second wife, a woman named Adaobi, whose beauty only matched her cruelty. Adaobi had a daughter named Oluchi, who always wore new beads and silks, while Enma wore old wrappers and walked barefoot. Enma was the one who scrubbed the compound floors, fetched water from the river, and washed everyone's clothes. Her fingers were always raw, her legs always sore, but she never complained. The only thing she kept from her mother was a wooden flute hidden beneath her mat. She would sneak out at night and play it under the moon, alone, the sound soft like the wind and heavy like sorrow. One day, while she played the flute near the river, a woman appeared. She wore white from head to toe, her skin glowing faintly, like light beneath water. She said nothing at first, only sat beside Enma and listened. When Enma finally noticed her, she froze. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone," Enma stuttered. "You didn't," the woman replied. "You play with pain. That means your song is true." "Who are you?" Enma asked, her voice small. "A friend," the woman said, "for now." She left before Enma could say more, disappearing into the forest like a ghost in fog. But that would not be the last time Enma saw her. The village square was buzzing. Drummers practiced near the elder's hut. Women traded gossip in hushed tones. The king's messengers had arrived from the capital. The prince would choose his bride during the festival of fireflies, just one moon away. Girls all over Umuzala began preparing, singing louder, dancing harder, and dressing in their finest clothes even for morning chores. But inside Ekweme's compound, Adaobi's eyes burned with ambition. "Oluchi," she said, pressing a bead into her daughter's braided hair. "This is your moment. The prince must see you. He must choose you." "Yes, Mama," Oluchi replied, twirling in her shimmering wrapper. "He won't look at anyone else." And then Adaobi's gaze shifted to the back of the compound, where Enma was on her knees scrubbing the ground with an old rag. "Enma!" Adaobi barked. "Faster, or you'll sleep without food again." Enma didn't look up. She just nodded. "Yes, Ma." That night, as always, she took out her flute, but her hands were too tired to play. Her fingers trembled, her lips quivered. The wind carried her silence into the dark. Then, a whisper. "You forgot how to sing?" She turned quickly. It was her again, the woman in white. I'm just tired," Enema said softly, and they said I can't go to the prince's celebration." The woman stepped forward, lifting Enema's chin gently. "Your music was never meant to stay hidden. You have the gift. It runs in your blood." "Gift?" Enma asked. The woman only smiled and pulled out a small cloth bundle. Inside was a flute, not wooden, but silver, with golden engravings. "Take it," the woman said, "but it's too beautiful." "Beauty means nothing unless it speaks," the woman interrupted, "and your music speaks louder than any beads or dance. This flute once belonged to someone very special." "Who?" Enma asked. But the woman only whispered, "When the fireflies dance in the sky, you must be there. You must play. You must shine." And just like before, she vanished. The next morning, Adaobi and Oluchi were busy preparing for the festival. They hired a traveling dancer from the next village. They bought colored chalk for body paint. Oluchi even practiced her smile in the mirror, tilting her head to the side the way city girls did. But when Enema quietly asked if she could go too, Adaobi laughed so hard her scarf fell off. "You? Go to the palace? In what? These rags?" She snatched the old cloth Enma was wearing and waved it in the air. Oluchi added with a sneer, "Even the prince's goats wear better than you." "I want to play my flute," Enma whispered. "That flute again?" Adaobi spat. "I warned you about that thing. I should have burned it when your mother died." Enma clutched her bundle protectively, but it was too late. Adaobi grabbed it, tore it from her hands, opened it, and froze. "What is this?" she said, eyes widening at the silver flute. Oluchi gasped. "Where did she get that?" Enema stepped back. "I didn't steal it. It was a gift." "A gift? From who? The gods?" Adaobi snarled. "Or perhaps a ghost?" Without thinking, she struck Enma across the face. The girl stumbled, her cheek red, eyes welling up. "You'll never go near that palace," Adaobi growled. "If I see you there, I'll break your legs myself." She stormed off with the flute, but before disappearing, she turned back and hissed, "You are not meant for greatness. Accept it." That night, Enma lay in the backyard on the cold earth, tears soaking her pillow of grass. The stars were out, but they looked too far away to care. Then, footsteps. The woman was back. But this time she looked different, tired, almost faint, like smoke losing shape. "What's happening to you?" Enema asked. "I don't have much time," the woman said. "The more you suffer, the weaker I become. You must go to the festival." "But I don't even have the flute anymore," Enma cried. The woman opened her palm. The silver flute was there. "Wait, how did you—" "She never stole it," the woman said softly. "It belongs to you." Enma held it close, trembling. "But they'll laugh at me." "They might. But when you play, they'll listen." The sun rose slowly over Umuzala, casting golden streaks through the palm fronds. The day had come. The festival of fireflies. Inside Ekwuemi's compound, Adaobi buzzed like a bee in silk. She rubbed scented oil into Oluchi's arms, adjusted her coral beads, and dusted her cheeks with crushed camwood powder. "You must walk like a queen," she told her. "Today, your future is sealed." "Yes, Mama," Oluchi grinned, lifting her chin. They didn't even glance at Enma, who sat by the fireplace, her face smudged with ash, pretending not to exist. But as they were about to leave, Adaobi turned. "Enma," she said with false sweetness, "the goat in the pen must be slaughtered and cooked before we return. And make sure you scrub the pot afterward. If I find a single hair in that soup, I'll use the broom on your back." They laughed as they left, their wrappers swaying like flags of victory. As the compound fell quiet, Enma stood slowly. She looked toward the kitchen, then toward the bush path. Her heart thudded. "I must go," she whispered. She ran behind the hut, where she had hidden the silver flute inside an old calabash. Her fingers trembled as she tied it inside her wrapper. Then she picked up her mother's broken mirror, the only piece left from the past. "I don't look like them," she whispered, "but I have something they don't." She ran, barefoot through the forest trail, leaves brushing her ankles, branches catching her wrapper. As she reached the edge of the great field near the palace, she paused, gasping, sweating, scared. The music had already begun. She crept behind the crowd, trying to hide behind the taller villagers. Up front, the maidens performed one after another, dancing, singing, spinning in bright colors. The prince sat beside the king, his face bored. Adaobi and Aluchi waited with pride, certain they'd dazzle him. Then the drummers paused. The announcer stepped forward. "We have one more performance," he called out. A surprise late entry. Heads turned. Eneme stepped forward, feet dusty, eyes steady. Her wrapper was plain, her hair undone. But in her hand, she held the silver flute. Whispers spread like fire. "Who is that?" "Is that Ekwuemi's daughter?" "She came?" Adaobi jumped to her feet. No, she is not on the list. She doesn't belong here." But the king raised a hand for silence. "Let her speak." Eneme bowed slightly. "Please, just let me play. If I fail, I'll leave quietly." The prince looked at her curiously, then nodded. And so she lifted the flute. The moment she blew the first note, the entire field fell silent. The sound floated like wind over water, soft, haunting, ancient. The birds stopped chirping. Even the drummers looked stunned. Then she sang, but not in the village tongue. She sang in her mother's dialect, a forgotten language, soft as feathers and strong as fire. The prince slowly leaned forward, mesmerized. And then he smiled. He picked up his own flute, one no one had seen him use all day, and began to play with her. Their melodies danced. The air shimmered. The fireflies, waiting for dusk, came early, swarming around the palace yard like falling stars. When it ended, no one clapped. Not yet. They just stood frozen, staring at the girl who didn't belong, who had just made the prince fall in love without saying a word. Then the king stood. "My people," he said, voice thick with awe. "The prince has made his choice." Whispers rose. Oluchi's eyes widened in fear. Adaobi looked like she'd swallowed a stone. The king turned to Enma. "He chooses her." The field exploded. Cheers rang out. The villagers clapped, shouted, jumped, and sang. Some cried. Others just shook their heads in disbelief. But from the back of the crowd, a scream pierced the joy. "Lies! She stole that flute. She tricked the prince." It was Adaobi. She shoved her way forward, dragging Oluchi behind. "She's a thief," she shouted. "She doesn't belong here. That flute is mine. That girl is nothing." Gasps rose. The king narrowed his eyes. "Is this true?" he asked Enma. And just before she could answer, a calm, clear voice spoke from the crowd. "She stole nothing," the voice said. "I gave her that flute." A woman stepped into view, dressed in simple white, her veil barely hiding the glow of her skin. "I have watched this child suffer in silence for years. I gave her the music. I gave her the gift." "And who are you?" the queen asked, rising. The woman pulled back her veil, and Enma gasped. "Mama." The woman nodded slowly, her voice cracking. "Yes, Enma, I am your mother. My spirit couldn't rest while you were mistreated." The wind stilled. Even the fireflies stopped moving. Enema's lips trembled. "My mother, but You died. The woman stepped closer, her white veil catching the soft moonlight. Yes, I died. But I couldn't rest. Not while you cried every night. Not while they broke your spirit. I stayed, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the moment you would rise. The villagers gasped. She's been appearing to the girl, someone whispered. She helped her in the forest, another added. She's not of this world, said an old man bowing low. She's one of the blessed. Adaobi's eyes darted wildly. No, this is madness. A spirit cannot stand in court. She's lying. They're both lying. The queen stepped down from the royal platform. Speak the truth now, woman. This is the king's court. The woman raised her chin, power in her voice. I was Ekwemi's first wife. Enme is my daughter. Adaobi beat her, starved her, and tried to burn every memory of me. But love doesn't die. Gasps again. The king slowly turned to the crowd. Has anyone seen this woman help the girl before today? One by one, voices rose. She helped Enma carry firewood when Adaobi sent her to clear the bush alone. She gave her food when the family left her to starve. She watched over her like a guardian spirit. Then an elderly woman stepped forward. I knew her, years ago, before she died. That's her. Her name was Obiageli. She was a kind woman, quiet, strong. The king's face hardened. He turned to Adaobi. You denied this girl her name, her voice, her future, and now, even after the truth sings before you, you raise your tongue in lies. Adaobi dropped to her knees, her wrapper falling loose. Please, my king, it was jealousy, fear. I didn't know she would become this. I didn't know the spirits walked among us. You knew she was a child, the queen said coldly, and you made her less than one. The king raised his staff. For mistreating your husband's daughter, for lying in this sacred court. You will serve 6 months in the palace kitchen. You will clean, cook, and serve every maiden you once looked down upon. You will learn kindness the hard way. Cheers erupted. Oluchi trembled beside her mother, but the queen placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The sins of the parent do not always fall on the child, but learn from this. Then the king turned to Enma. You, child, you carry the voice of the ancestors. You woke something in this land that had been sleeping. The prince stepped forward, his eyes never leaving hers. He bowed low, not to impress the crowd, but out of pure respect. Will you stay beside me? He asked. Not as a servant, not as a show, but as an equal. A partner, a queen. Enma was silent. She turned to the woman, her mother, standing just a few steps behind. The woman smiled softly. This is your life now, my child. I have done what I came to do. Enma blinked away tears. You're leaving? The woman nodded slowly. I must. But every time you play that flute, I'll hear you. Every time you sing, I'll dance. Every beat of your heart is the rhythm of mine. The two embraced. Enma sobbed into her mother's shoulder. Then, like mist in the morning sun, the woman faded, leaving behind the scent of flowers and memories that could never be erased. 2 days later, the palace exploded in celebration. The wedding was grand, the biggest Umuzala had ever seen. Drummers played till their fingers bled. Flutes danced with voices. Dancers spun like the wind. Enema was adorned in coral beads and a flowing gown of sky-blue silk. Her feet sparkled with gold dust. Her smile lit up the palace walls. Ekweme, now gray-haired and bent with regret, approached her after the ceremony. He knelt. My daughter, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I failed you. I let the world silence you. Enma looked at him for a long time. Her voice was calm. You hurt me deeply, but I cannot carry that pain into this new life. She placed a hand on his shoulder. I forgive you. Tears fell from the old man's eyes. Later that night, as the stars blinked high above the palace, Inma sat by the balcony. She lifted the silver flute. She played, not a sad song, but one filled with light and laughter and home. And far in the wind, somewhere beyond the veil, a voice sang with her.